In the Middle East,
You know, you're hugging, you're kissing, you're loving, you're loving with each other. He tells you, baby, I love you. You're the only one for me.
how can we have understanding in the night when there's none in the woman? Good evening. I'm your host, STEPHANA, CAVINESS, and you're watching A Woman's Point. Guess what? Tonight's guest is someone that you've heard on the radio if you're younger. I listen to 1079 sometimes. I tell that lie every now and then. No. But tonight's guest is a DJ on 1079, and his name is Jay Fresh. Good evening, Jay.
Good evening to you.
But that's not really your name, huh?
Well, you can call me whatever you want to call me.
Okay. All right. Now, Jay, we met through my son, Chip.
Yes.
And Chip is on MySpace often, and you're on MySpace. It's
Yes.
amazing the people that he meets on MySpace.
It's an amazing invention. The technology is amazing.
Right.
You know, I don't know how old you are, but, you know,
I'm
where I come from.
53, so
Wow, well, okay.
I'm way back, you know.
It's just the technology is just beautiful. It's just wonderful.
Yeah, we
You
had
know.
computers. I think you know Silver B.
Yeah.
Richards. Okay, he and I were talking the other day, and we said, "Boy, do you remember the time when we were in college? We were using typewriters, and we had to go to the library. You don't even have to. I mean, yeah, and we had to use the whiteout and the little tapes that you put in between, so you could erase the mistake and go on over.
Oh, cutting that
gosh.
tape from your wrist to your elbow. That was 2 seconds.
And when we first got our computer, the first time I said, "Oh no, this isn't going to work. That typewriter is better. How am I going to do this?" I mean, I was not a believer that would
Oh,
work.
and you were stuck in your old ways and don't
I
want to
sure was.
accept the advancement in the technology, and you're just like, no, I'm so used to doing it this way. I'm not accepting that. You know?
Right, but I got used to it, and I said I loved it. So, but this MySpace stuff is it's amazing because he meets so many people. So I'm glad that he did, because we're going to get to you now. Get off technology. But, Jay, you're at 1079.
Yes.
And what hours are you on?
You can hear me all the time, really, if I'm filling in. But you can usually hear me, you know, every weekend, Saturdays and Sundays, from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. at night on Saturdays, and
Right.
Sundays, 10 in the morning to 2 p.m.
Okay.
But if you
great.
hear me throughout the day, it's because I'm filling in for Tallis or Robin
Yeah,
or Eddie
because
Bauer.
I have
Yes.
off and on. I do tune into 1079 periodically.
Okay. While I was doing something bad, actually, I was watching Sesame Street, you know.
How old were you then?
I was about
12?
12 or 13 years
Okay.
old. I really can't remember, but I know when I saw this man on Sesame Street, which goes by the name of DJ Grandmaster Flash, and my life changed. Ever since then, it changed.
From Sesame Street.
Sesame Street.
What was it about him that was impressed you?
He done something I've never in my life seen before.
What?
He had 3 turntables, and he had this outfit on. It was, you know, back then, you know, that was
yeah.
cool. You know, the black leather vest, and you know,
I
the,
think
the
it's still
gloves and-
cool, but okay.
You know, me too. You know,
Yeah.
but you know, but he was so intriguing. You know, he just caught my attention. I just was glued to the tube and was like, you know, who is this guy? You know, I never saw this before. You know, I've seen DJs, you know, with 2 turntables, you know, but it was just something different about this guy that just made me stop what I was doing, and I was just like, and what he was doing was so intriguing. It just blew my mind.
What did he do with the 3 turntables?
Well, he was standing there, and they was there, and the music that they were going around and around, and he was scratching, and
Yeah.
and I've never seen that before.
Okay.
And it was making this weird sound like, then he was spinning around and, you know, doing tricks and
While
just-
he was still doing this.
right, and I was just like, wow. And my whole world, everything around me, what I was doing, just changed. You know, from sports to whatever I was doing, I used to draw, from playing the drums, everything changed. You know, it stopped. And that's what I want. When I saw that, I said, that's what I want to do.
Okay.
And I was so so intrigued by that to where I wanted to find out what that was. I wanted to find out more about it. I wanted to research it. The same way I researched playing the drums, I wanted to research what I just seen on Sesame Street.
So what did you do next?
Well, what I did next was I looked at my mother's stereo, her record player. I said, okay, it looks like what I saw on there. Looked at my sister's stereo, and, it went from trying to copy what I saw, and it didn't work out. I didn't know what I was doing. So what I did next was I went to the local record store, and I said, hey, who is Grandmaster Flash? And the guy was like, oh, Grandmaster Flash, you don't know who Grandmaster Flash is? 12 years old, I don't know,
Yeah.
You should know who Grandmaster Flash is. And I remember this guy. He's been knowing my father for years. And matter of fact, he got him started at this record store. But he explained to me who he was. And matter of fact, he gave me some records, out of his store. And he said, come back next week and I'll give you some more stuff,
Wow.
And so I came back next week. I was there next week. He gave me
You had a great interest in that.
Oh, yeah. And he gave me some turntables and, and I said, these are only 2. He had 3, He said, look here, start off on 2, and so that's how it all started. Then I started researching, reading, looking and, asking around to other DJs that were older than me, and they were explaining it to me. And so I would go home and I would practice I would be in the basement for hours like I did with the drums.
Okay.
The same thing I did with the drums, I did with this new art form that I discovered,
So it developed from there.
And it developed from there on to the point where I ended up doing gigs, DJing in the clubs. And I was, showing we can do, So I go up there and, big old headphones on my, and I'm up there in the DJ booth and I would do it. And he said, well, let me see if he can do that with people in here. Now, there ain't nobody in here. Let me see what he can do when there's people in here. Now, these are grown folks now.
Sure.
Now, he's sick. Do he know the music? So my father's like, trust me. So here I am, 16 years old, doing these parties in these clubs, and these grown folks, dancing. They looking up at the, like, how do he know these songs, And so it went from there, And then it went from a contest that I entered on the local radio station, and I won. And it was a trip to L.A., and then it was.
So you won doing the scratch.
Right. It was actually an AIDS contest to rap about AIDS because I started rapping too.
So you started rapping.
Yeah, I was rapping too because
you said rapping. I said rapping.
Yeah, well, the thing is, at the time, I didn't know what I was watching on Sesame Street when I first saw it. I didn't know about hip hop. I didn't know about the whole scene. I didn't know nothing about it.
Okay.
So when I researched the DJing thing and researched Grandmaster Flash, that's when I discovered about the hip hop, the graffiti, the break dancing, the MCs and stuff like that. So when I researched it, I learned about all that. So that intrigued me too, to pick up the microphone and hey, I can do this too. So I started writing and
Quite talented.
Yeah, so I was doing the whole 9 yards. So it was a contest on the radio, and it said, make a 60-second, spot on AIDS, and the winner gets $500 and a trip to L.A. And I was like, I could do that. That's what I do. So I wrote this rhyme about AIDS and, about the virus and everything, and I won.
Wow.
And from there, I ended up being a roadie. I connected with some people. So you
went to L.A.
So I went to L.A.
You became a
and
roadie.
What happened with L.A., I met this guy by the name of DJ Aladdin. A lot of people don't really, if you're old school, you will know. He's done a lot of things in the area, and he was doing these things called DMC, which is DJ battles.
Okay.
Right. And it just started up during that time, that period in the early 80s.
Okay.
And I was the first out of Detroit to compete in the DMCs. And so I started learning how to do tricks on it. There was another thing that was in this wonderful art form, and that was treating the turntables like what I saw Grandmaster Flash do when he was spinning around. But at the time, I didn't know until I went to L.A. And when I went to
Years
L.A.,
later.
then I was like, oh, there's more to this. So that's what Grandmaster Flash was doing. So I learned that craft. Then I started competing and traveling and competing. That led to on the road and opening up for big bands like the SOS Band, Run DMC.
What?
New Edition when they were kids, when I was a kid. Oh, yeah. I remember coming here in Cleveland with New Edition and Run DMC and the SOS Band and RJ's Latest Arrival. My first time ever in Cleveland. This was probably 85.
My goodness. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So how old were you then?
Had to have been about 17 or 18.
All right, so you're a roadie for how many years?
From 85 to 95 for 10 years.
All right, and then from there...
Actually, 94, 95. Yeah, 95. Yeah, 95.
Why did you stop?
Well, because of the business. You know, the new cats come along, you know, just like bands, you know, why did Supreme stop? Because, you know, why did the Run DMC stop? You know, why did Vanilla Ice stop? Why did Hammer stop? Because you got the new cats coming in now, you know. And the business started to change. The technology started to change. And the business started to change. Record labels started to change, you know. They started merging. And, you know, just a lot of the business aspect of it started to change. And if you don't know the business, you're not going to be able to change with it. And that was the downfall.
Was it because it was more family-oriented or treated like that?
Yes, it was
at
more
one time?
family-oriented, and it was also independent, more independent. And the labels, but you got to understand, in the early 70s and 80s, the record labels looked at the whole rap music thing, the whole thing as something that's not music. You know, they didn't mess with it at all.
That's true.
You know, they didn't sign nobody, you know. And Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, they were like maybe the first to get signed.
Pioneers.
You know, so, you know, when the Sugar Hill Gang blew up really big,
I love them.
the labels were like, okay, that's only one time. You know, nobody else is going to do that, you know. Exactly.
I used to love to do
Oh
that.
yeah, it was the biggest thing, you know. It changed the world. When that song came out, it changed the world, you know. But the labels, the collars, the business people, the suits were like, okay, it changed the world, but this is not music. You know, we're about money, making money, you know. You know, real music is, you know, R&B, rock, you know, country, you know. This is something that's going to go away. It's going to fade away. It's something popular.
But someone saw that it wasn't going to.
But it didn't do that.
Right.
So, and the record labels, they recognized that. It's like, oh, wait a minute. There's potential of getting rich off of this. So that's when it started to change. So, and if you don't know the business, then you can't change with it. And that was the downfall with me and a lot of other people, a lot of other artists, you know, because they didn't really know the business. Or, like we were talking earlier about, we stuck in our old ways. We don't want to accept technology.
Right.
You know, we don't want to accept it. You know, it's like, you know, well, I'm used to doing it the old way. I'm used to putting the peanut butter on the bread like this, you know, so.
Or taking out the peanut butter and then the grape jelly as opposed to getting the one that's all mixed together, you know.
Right. So that was one of the problems with the whole thing of the business part of it. And my father would always tell me, you know, learn the business, find out about the business, you know,
so you
find
did
out.
Then. You went to the Ohio School of Broadcasting?
Well,
maybe?
years
Or
later.
No?
Years later. Yeah, much later, yes. Because after I got on the road, you know, it was like we would be on the road for like maybe 3 to 4 months, and I'm back in Detroit. You know, the tour bus would drop me off, you know, and maybe in another week or so or a month or so, I'm back on the road, you know. But then when it all stopped, it was like, okay, I'm back in Detroit. What I do now? You know, and everybody's like, but you've been everywhere. You've done so many things. You've been around so many stars. You've lived in their houses. You've done this. You've been on TV. You've done this. Why are you here? You know, it's the business. It's the way the business is, you know. So I just went back to what I did best, DJing. You know, doing clubs.
That's your start.
Yeah, I was doing clubs and I was back in the clubs, you know. Then I started traveling again as a guest DJ. You know, that was something new that I found out about, you know, that I can make money by traveling to other cities as a guest DJ. You know, like go to Vegas or go to Chicago and spin in clubs, you know, as a guest DJ.
But you had to know someone.
Well, because of me being on the road.
Because of your connections.
The connections, so that's how I got, yes.
Right.
Yes.
You can't just say, if someone is hearing this now, oh, I want to be a guest DJ.
No.
It's still who you know.
Right. It was. I was connected to some people from being on the road.
Very much connected.
Yeah. Turnpike and I'm home.
So you came here, started working at Radio 1?
Well, actually, I came here to go to school first.
Okay.
You know, because I didn't plan on working in radio here.
Broadcasting.
I didn't plan on working in radio, period. You know, I just wanted to get my foot in the door at the local radio station. Because they wouldn't hire me. So I figured if I get a degree, then they would hire me, you know. Because I didn't know the business. I had no clue about the business or the whole, how it works. And so when I went to school, I found out how it works. It's like, oh, this is how it works.
Wow.
So I may end up, you know, anywhere. Can end up in